Hello everybody, I'm Chris Callahan, also known as Mr. C, and today we're going to talk about the ladder checkmate. Ladies and gentlemen, what would you say is the saddest thing you've seen in your whole life? For me, the answer to that question is easy. It's something I've seen at many chess tournaments, some with kids, some with adults, and it happens in positions like this. Who would you say is winning this position? Who's ahead? Clearly white, right? Clearly the person playing with the white pieces. White has a queen. White has a rook. Black has nothing at all. White is winning. They should win. But you don't win chess games by having more chess pieces. It certainly helps. But the way you win a chess game is to get checkmate. And you need to know how to turn this situation into checkmate. Many people who don't quite know what they're doing, they know they need to get a checkmate, so they just start giving checks, and they kind of cross their fingers and hope it'll work out somehow. So check, haha, got you. And then check, and then check, and then check, and then let's give a diagonal check. Oh, that's different. And then check over here, haha, check, and then check, and then check, and then check. And yeah, clearly this isn't going to work. You could do this for 1,000 years and you're never going to get a checkmate. You're just going to get a lot of checks. You need a better plan. And the better plan is the ladder checkmate. Now, the point of the ladder checkmate, before I show you the actual moves, is to push the king to the edge of the board. It doesn't quite matter which edge you push the king to. It just has to be the edge, right? It can be the side edge or the bottom edge, whatever. You will see this in all basic checkmates. You see the same thing in the 2-bishop checkmate. You see the same thing in the 1 rook by itself checkmate. The reason is that the king is easier to checkmate on the edge of the board. When you are checkmating the king, you need to cover the square that the king is on, and you need to cover every square that he can go to. When the king is in the middle, that's 9 squares. If you put him on the edge, it is not 9 squares, it is 6 squares. Actually, if you put him in the corner, it is now only 4 squares. He's really easy to checkmate over there. So we need to push the king to the edge. And the problem with the give checks for 1,000 years strategy is that the king never comes out of the middle, okay? So my first move, when I'm doing the ladder, is I'm going to put my queen here, which looks a little mysterious until you see the next move. So black gets a move too, and then we'll put our rook right here. Now this is a check, but can the king stay in the middle of the board? No, he cannot. Some very smart person put a queen there, which stops that from happening. Wasn't that person smart? So the king has to go backwards towards the edge, and I want to give another check. But do I give a check with the rook or the queen? Well, if I give a check with the rook, then the king can go back towards the middle. So we're not doing that. I want to leave the rook here and give a check with some other piece. What piece could we use? Oh, right, the queen. Queen check, while the rook stops the king from going back. King goes backwards. Now which piece? Well, the queen was the one we just moved. The queen is covering those squares, so let's use the rook. And then the king goes backwards again, and now we use the queen, and that is checkmate. There is nowhere for the king to go. The reason this is called the ladder checkmate is because the queen and the rook move like your hands do when you climb a ladder. First the right hand to one rung, then the left hand to the next rung, then the right hand again to the next rung, then the left hand to the next rung, and so on and so forth until we get to the top of the ladder, and that's checkmate. Okay? There is precisely one way that black can be difficult in all this, that the black king can cause you problems, and that is by running towards your pieces. Let me show you what that looks like. So I'll put my queen here, as we did before. Then the king runs over towards the queen. The rook gives a check, and now the king goes here. Now, if you follow the moves that I played before, you would put your queen here, but that's a terrible mistake. Does anybody see why? Yes, because you lose your queen, of course. So there are different solutions to this problem, and you might find one that works just as well as mine does, but my preferred solution is to just run to the other side of the board. I don't need to actually put my queen right here. I just need it to be somewhere on this line, right? And it needs to be somewhere on that line where it doesn't get taken. So I would like to move my queen here. Now you may say, queens don't move like that, and I disagree. I think they can, it just takes 2 moves. So I'll go here, and then I will go here. And we're going to do the ladder over on this side. It's exactly the same thing, except both pieces are on one side of the board, right? And the black king will try to run back over to where the pieces are, but he's pretty slow. He's not going to get there. And this is checkmate, okay? The other thing to mention is that when you get this position in a game, or this sort of position, it may not look exactly like it does the way that I'm showing you here. The pieces will be in random places. Maybe this queen will be here, or this rook will be over here. Who knows? But that shouldn't be too big of a problem for you if you know the main idea, if you know the idea of the hands going over each other one at a time to the next run, to the next run. You can set that up. So if I was playing this position, maybe I would bring the rook over to the side. Okay, and then bring the queen over to the side to sort of set up what it's supposed to look like. And then we can just start doing the ladder, can't we? Right? Now we're in position. It took us a couple moves to set it up, but that's fine. Oh, I can't give a checkmate here. He would just take me. So we run to the other side of the board, and this works just fine. Okay? What if you don't have enough pieces? What if you only have a rook and a pawn? You can't give checks with a pawn, can you? Well, what you can do with a pawn is push it to the edge of the board and get a queen, and then then you can't give checks, right? So I'm not going to go into every single possible situation you could have. Suffice to say, you get 2 rooks or 2 queens or a queen and a rook, any piece that moves to the side as far as it wants, and you can do the ladder. My final advice to you is that you need to practice this. I know that I've explained everything very well. I'm a brilliant teacher. Everything was explained in perfect detail. Everything is perfectly clear. You need to practice this. I'm going to leave a link in the description of the video below. I suggest you go try this yourself, because you don't want the next time you think about all this to be after you've been playing chess for 2 hours. You've been playing chess brilliantly for 2 hours, taking all their pieces, winning the game, and then suddenly you realize you don't know how to finish it off. I'm warning you. Go practice this right now. You will not regret it. Anyway, that's all I have. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.